Hey y'all, it's time for another Magical Monday Behind the Curtain, where I share about my nonlinear, messy, authentically human path of living radical magic. So, March has been real, y'all, like real. I heard an astrologer several months ago say March was going to be the energy of a snake trying to eat a massive, massive mouse, rat, whatever snakes eat. And I very much felt that. I think we all felt it in our own ways. Whatever our big rat was to swallow, it came for us. And as I sit here on April 3rd, hallelujah, we made it through March. I'm called to share a bit about what it's been like for me to manage that energy and the realness of it, rather than what we usually see on social media, which is like the dismount. I did it. Yay. Look at how sparkly things are, because it's not fun to be in the becoming. And that's what I'm sitting with. And what I was called to be with in March was, what's the dance, tension, mud wrestling match between empowered surrender and, how do I even want to say it? Like empowered surrender and personal responsibility. And that is actually a very foundational aspect of the life I live and the work that I support folks in embodying, which is like, how do I hold the paradoxical holy both and of being in a state of chosen surrender to be in divine alignment and do what is mine to do. And March, the way I've described it to friends, March was like putting me in a bank safe by myself, is what the energy felt like. Meaning, I grow all the time in my life and business. That's just the life I was born into. So I'm on this sort of like rapid path of growth and healing. It's my life. I know this. It doesn't make it easy, but knowing that makes it easier. And so I'm used to like fits and starts, like this kind of in my life, because sometimes I can't be outwardly successful or productive because I know that I'm doing the inward path. I've talked about this many times. Well, March was like crickets. I mean, it was a prolonged period of me sitting with myself, where all of those distractions I could normally find some comfort in, like, oh, I'm going to create this new program, or, oh, I've got these new clients coming in. It wasn't happening. And so I sat with all of the shit, the conditioned stories around, okay, well, who am I if nothing is happening? Like, I still was with my friends. I still was, doing beautiful growth and all kinds of, lovey stuff with my partner. There was good stuff going on, but where my attention was focused coming out of sabbatical was on like aligning my business. And the universe was like, nope, 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 not time for that. It's time to go deeper. It's time to go to this like quiet depth of understanding and self-confrontation with compassion some of the time, so that you can know what you need to know to move forward in a completely new way, in a completely new energy. So I kept saying, I'm living with open palms. I'm living with open palms. Like, and one of my mantras with the universe, with the divine, is show me. And so one of the things was I had to get very firm with higher guidance, because I tend to be in a more receptive, passive state. It's like, oh, look at that magic that just happened. Oh, how cool. And I have to remember sometimes to say, hey, I'm showing up for this process. I'm doing the work. I'm healing. Make it undeniably clear what is mine to do and what is mine to release. And it was, there's an importance of having that kind of energy with our requests to the quantum field, right? Or God, to put that intention out with abundant clarity. Now, it took me like 2/3 of the month to get there because I was too busy being in my wounding and in my victimhood, and man, nothing's happening. Nobody loves me. Attachment wound that I was swirling around with. And then as I sat with like, okay, like show me, guess what happened? I started getting shown. And if you're on my newsletter, you probably heard that I'm abundantly clear now that a big part of my work is working with couples and just supporting people in approaching relationship in general, with self, with other, with partners, from a radically different perspective than what we're used to. It's been what I've been doing, but I didn't identify with it. So I was shown. And now comes the personal responsibility bit. So the personal responsibility bit is being open and surrendered enough to get the information that is most true and then acting from that place, which is not what I wanted to do at the beginning of the month. I was like a content machine, which I always am. It's part of my slippery slope. And I was just creating, envisioning, and all this kind of stuff, but it was keeping me from listening. So personal responsibility to listen, and then to align with what I heard rather than what I thought was going to happen was part of my process. The other part was while I was swimming in my nobody loves me, anxious attachment victimhood, which goes way deep, I wanted to choose another story. And so I consciously put in practice around like, okay, I'm going to tip my hat to my wound. I'm going to acknowledge it with compassion. I'm going to get curious enough to actually like feel it. And sometimes I'm really going to feel it. But then I'm going to look for ways to invest in my desire. Now, in my human design, I've learned that I best manifest or work with the quantum field and the collective of humanity by feeling the frequency I want to have more of in my life. Or, you know, in some cases, it's what do I wish for the world? It's very meta. And so I did things like, you know, I doubled down on my spiritual practice, and not in a, I got to work harder way, because the energy behind it matters, in a like, what feels most nourishing sort of way. How can I, when I feel alone, feel more connected? So that was one thing. The other was, I felt more abundant than I've ever felt when I did my Radical Magic road trip. And so even if I was feeling like I was like locked in the vault of life for March, or a lot of it, I went back in my mind's eye very consciously to moments from my trip that felt so expansive and so joyful and so abundant, and I was in such flow that I actually conjured that energy and frothed it up in the present moment, so that I could not feel like I was drowning in that path of growth and healing, which can be really overwhelming when it doubles up, triples up, quadruples up, which March came with that energy. It's very efficient, right? It pushed a lot of things through. It pushed a lot of suppressed emotions. It pushed a lot of avoided clarity and alignment. It pushed a lot of old baggage and beliefs to the surface so that they could be released. It was a lot. It wasn't a trickle. It was a fire hose. And so it was like, in order to not drown in that, I think we have to have some tools. I also really dove into my human design learning, that kind of like when I was doing applied neuroscience. One of the things I loved, it's like part of my kink, is there's no end. Just like there's no end to learning about the brain, there feels like there is no end to learning about human design, which actually feels like a really rich place for me to like go into learning about what I love and what is fascinating. And so that was another thing that felt good. And I was taking this responsibility for my energy while acknowledging what was happening. And that's that holy both and. Like, I know what I don't know, which is clarity of direction and what's going to be happening 2 months from now, let's say. But what I do know is this feels right. This feels true. This feels nourishing. This feels like it helps me feel connected and all that good stuff. So that was my March, and it was shitty. It's kind of like somebody asking me to go repeat the 7th grade. I'd be like, nah, no thanks. Any year but 7th grade. Actually, I also don't want to repeat my senior year of high school, but March felt like that. But I can also look back, just as I can on 7th grade, on this month and go, oh, look at how, like, it grew me so profoundly. It showed me things that I wouldn't have acknowledged any other way. And so that is what I'm offering. Like, if this resonates with your experience, I will be so happy to know it, because again, a lot of times we don't talk about these stuck times, these times where we're not able to be wildly productive. Now, here's the other part I'll offer. I did my best to surrender to the energies of March, and within the last week, I am no longer in the vault. Like, it's like the dam has opened and things are flowing to me around several different intentions I've had, not just my work. So that's the other thing I want to offer, is the nonlinear life means we're not anxiously attached to controlling how and when things happen. We're aligning so that things can happen in its organic way, which sometimes is like all at once versus in some steady, predictable way. And I know that's my life path. I've wanted to opt out and choose a different one that felt more secure at times, but I think it's on purpose that I have this, because I'm training my nervous system to have a capacity for faith, for, navigating faith fatigue, which is what I've been calling it. I'm learning how to be with it better, with, like, surf the waves more gracefully. And so if you're in it, whether it's about work, whether it's about relationships, whether it's about money, friends, community, whatever it is, know that there are a lot of people who are on this nonlinear path. They're just trying to pretend they're not. And it's okay. And you don't need to have shame about it. I mean, unless you choose to, but shame feels pretty shitty to me. So dancing with what feels better in the now, even if it's a memory, and tipping your hat with compassion for what's no longer serving, and trying to find that beautiful middle point, I think, is where we are. That's certainly where I've been. And if my story serves you, I am thrilled. All right, take sweet care of yourselves. I will see you next week.